Okay, so before we go, I want to go to the task I gave you, okay, the small task I gave you, okay, what practical, okay, can you remind, because I have some answers in there, I don't want to show, what practical, yes, Sophia?
Yeah, we can talk about misbehavior, like dealing with managing conflicts in the classroom.
Yes, dealing with misbehavior, of course.
Also managing groups, talk about group management.
Yes.
And interactions with
Pair work, group work, individual work.
Interactions within the class, either student-student interaction or student.
Yes, okay, that's fine. Leave something for others. Yes. Can you repeat that? Repeat.
We have mentioned here group work and peer work.
Yes.
Whereby the teacher is a manager.
Yes, of course. He has to decide on that.
Monitoring and controlling.
That's new, not mentioned in there. So monitoring and controlling, supervising, all those roles of a teacher that you know. So each time he adopts a role, so that's a decision in there. That's a management. Okay? Yes? Finished? Ikram? That's fine. Yeah.
So in addition to what has been said about the way the teacher manages the discourse in the classroom, the way he distributes, for example, turn taking among students, for example, it can be a way of can be one of the can show to what extent the teacher is a good manager of
managing behavior.
The discourse.
The discourse, yes, of course. We come back to the issue of classroom discourse and the way he uses the questions, etc. You remember? So also there is management in there. Okay, that's a very good point. Yes, Sophia?
We can also talk about time management.
Of course, time management, of course, because when you do the lesson plan, so you have to decide on the time, of course, and then when it comes to the teaching, then something new there.
I wrote here that the teacher also in speaking and writing activities, he has to manage his class, so he's the manager of the classroom. In writing activities, he has to go around the class, monitor what the students are doing, edit and help students with vocabulary and needed language. Also, similar to also the speaking activities, there's also the teacher is a manager during the assessment and also exams.
Of course.
So he helps in invigilating in the preparation process for the exams and later on to facilitate the process of the exam going in a very quiet and peaceful way.
Yes.
There's also a teacher is a manager during the extracurricular activities, which is very important to development of the leadership of students. And it's also a part of the, it's an important part for the teacher to show his leadership in school.
Yes, very sure, especially in those kinds of activities, yes.
I think that the teacher is the manager whenever there is need for decision taking in any part of the lesson and in any part of the preparation of the lesson and in any part of the post lesson. So whenever there is decision taking, there is part of
this management there. For example, you remember the last time you gave the example, you were doing an activity with a group, I remember, and then you noticed that it's not okay, it didn't work well, so you revise, make another decision. So that's management. So you see the point? Management. So the teacher, in all his jobs, so he's manager, okay? So there is management going on there. So before we go into the issues in detail, let me recapitulate what we have talked about in the previous lecture. So we have said that successful innovation requires good management. But when you remember, we compared everyday life to education setting, okay? And we said that in everyday life, we are engaged in evaluation, but it's not systematic, it's not organized, etc. But when you go into education, you need to make it organized, and there should be good management involved in there. Securing maximum cooperation, we remember when we talked about the approaches, different types of approaches, and best way to deal with evaluation is to incorporate all the participants in the education, okay, process. Involvement among all the groups concerned, so involving the users, the name of the teachers and the students in any kind of evaluation, and therefore bring about better innovation that can solve problems rather than bring new problems. Thus, dealing with evaluation for innovation is closely related to concepts of management and leadership, so as we are going to see, in the sense that evaluation has to be planned. Okay, evaluation has to be planned and executed by various people. Tips and techniques to deal with evaluation in this regard will be presented, of course, in this lecture. Now, the first thing we need to talk about is the teacher, and have a look at the teacher and how he is a manager. In your answers, you have provided a number of examples and situations where we clearly see that the teacher is a kind of manager. So evaluation must be well managed. So if the teacher wants to evaluate, okay, he should be a better manager, okay, of doing that. Good management practice integrates both continuous and final evaluation into any educational and teaching plan. So when there is teaching going on, so the teacher, in order to be a good teacher and to be well involved into evaluation, he should be a better manager of that evaluation. So therefore, there should be some kind of continuous and final, okay, evaluation. So you know, yes. Good management includes dealing with another area where we clearly see the characteristic of management in relation to teachers, especially in relation to extracurricular activities. Especially in relation to extracurricular activities, in which good management includes dealing with financial, okay, financial issues. For example, if you are making a kind of trip or visiting some place, so you should be management of that, okay? Financial issues. Also, in relation to the materials, okay? This is an example you haven't mentioned, okay? In relation to the materials that the teacher uses, there is a management there. So he has a number of choices, and of course he has to make a decision on whatever is suitable to his or her students. And physical and human resources. We're talking about pair work, group work, and setting, of course, doing psych. Remember last time we talked about classroom management, we also talk about the U shape and the circle shape or semicircle shape. So whatever you take, whatever decision you take in order to organize your classroom, so that's management in there. It should be well done. Management is closer to the work of teachers, as you can see, than others responsible for education than we realize. Usually, people just take management when people dealing with business, companies, okay? Usually associated with business, okay? Companies, manager. But management is in the life, okay, of teacher and education in general. So Everard, 1986, outlined some characteristics of good manager, which have been adapted to the language teaching context. So here, more examples, more characteristics, more features related to a teacher as a manager. Okay, I give you some time to have a look at that. Okay, and then we try to discuss it. Okay? Okay, Akharush, can you read the first one and its context?
Yes. To know what she wants to happen and cause it to happen. Developing aims and objectives of a lesson or sequence.
So, of course, here we're talking about the preparation stage of your lesson as a teacher. So, you want something to happen, okay? When you are preparing your lesson, you want something to happen in terms of goals and what you want your students to learn, okay? And also in terms of activities, in terms of atmosphere, in terms of report, and so on and so forth. So, and where do you do this? When you are involved in developing aims and objectives of a lesson or a sequence. Okay, and the next one, Sophia, okay.
To exercise responsibility over resources and turn them to purposeful account, making effective use of resources.
So here we're talking about resources, all types of resources, logistics, materials, etc. Okay, and you need to exercise some responsibility over resources and turn them into purposeful account. Okay, like the board, for example. Usually, the following teachers, okay, they complain about coming and finding the whiteboard or the blackboard full. Okay, so there should be a good management in there of that resource, and you should be responsible in using that blackboard. So you need to clean it after finishing. So this is an example, okay? Of course, talking about all tables and talking about whatever kinds of other resources. The next point, anybody? Yes, Wally?
To promote effectiveness in work and search for continual improvement. Motivating learners towards better learning strategies.
Yes, here we're talking about, especially in terms of motivation, okay? Motivating the students, because it's like, I don't know how to, you need to keep like the students with you all the time, okay? It's a relationship. The teacher and the student, it's a relationship. And the relationship needs to be fed all the time, talking generally here, okay? So the same thing for the teacher and the student. So you need to motivate them every day, all the time, to keep them engaged, involved. Why? Because you want them to learn what you want to teach them. Okay? So here we talk about promoting effectiveness, etc., and continual improvement. How? Via developing their motivation, by motivating your learners. The next point. Yes?
To be accountable for the performance of the unit he or she is managing. Being accountable to parents, heads, learners.
Here we are talking mainly about the delivery of the lesson. Okay? About the delivery of the lesson. To prepare the lesson plan and the resources and the materials, and it's something. But the delivery and the process, teaching process itself, is something else. And that's maybe another very important area in terms of accountability for the students and, of course, for the parents and for the nation as a whole. Okay, we're talking about nation. So therefore, this is another area of showing the managerial qualities of a teacher. Yes? Yes,
maybe it also refers here to what extent the lesson responds to the parents and students' expectations.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Exactly.
The issue of
yes, exactly. So, because you want to satisfy them. You need to satisfy the students, and you need to satisfy the administration, the parents, and the nation as a whole, okay? The ministry. So, the delivery, the teaching process itself should be also well done, in addition to preparing your plans and so on and so forth. Next point, last one, yes?
The climate of tone conducive to enable people to give all their best. Establishing a rapport with learners and maintaining good classroom organization.
Okay, here we are talking basically about the rapport, the relationship again, okay? In addition to motivating them, one of the ways of motivating the students is to build this rapport with the students, so that there should be engagement, there should be interaction, and of course, stress-free environment, all those issues you have learned, and of course, learning can take place in better way. So these are just a few examples, okay, further examples based on research, okay, as you can see there, which talk about some qualities, okay, managerial qualities of teachers and the context where they are applicable. Now that's your activity I gave you, okay, I normally should give it to you now, but because I was finishing the slides. So, and then you have presented your suggestions, so just maybe further, okay, issues. You have talked about classroom organization, and you have talked about resource allocation, resources, logistics, and discipline, okay, you have mentioned discipline, and finally, group work, pair work, individual work, and so on and so forth, okay? So it's all management in there. The teacher is a form of involved in management in all his tasks. And then you have also mentioned the issue of monitoring. Okay, you have mentioned monitoring. So if there is no, the teachers cannot manage properly if they do not monitoring, supervising. After they set up group discussion, for example, as an activity, there is some group discussion. They need to evaluate its effectiveness while it is happening. You just don't let them doing the group discussion and that's it. Okay, and then but there should be some kind of evaluation of that group discussion in terms of its effectiveness. They might decide to intervene to keep the discussion on course. Sometimes you've noticed students deviating from the main topic, so you may decide. So that's management, okay? In order to keep the discussion going on. They might decide to evaluate the activity and performance later in the context of the whole lesson with a view to improve their planning. For example, doing assessment at the end, okay, to see if they achieved their goals or no. Running a class, so to summarize this, running a class without evaluating its effectiveness is bad management practice. So, because when you are teaching, the same way in our everyday life, we are involved in evaluation all the time spontaneously. So the teacher should do that, okay? Should be going on, okay? Spontaneously, okay? We're not talking about formal kind of evaluation, but usually it should be going on. Management in leadership, management in language teaching, leadership. So, if you go and study business, if you do study business, you can have a course like management, okay? And in this course, if you study management, you have one chapter or maybe more dealing with leadership, because leadership is a main aspect, okay, thing that can help about management. So in education, management and leadership are also crucial. So they go together, and they are also very useful, very important.
We have this too, management, we have them in BA. I mean, they study nowadays. Not essentially to be study in the field of business.
Where they study them?
We study them in
Ah, yes, as a subject. Oh, good. Oh, yeah. The same thing here. You have licence professionnelle. They studied management, introduction to management, introduction to marketing. Yeah, but that was really related to business. Okay, it was related to business. The same thing for you? Okay, the same thing. Okay, yeah. Huh? Here we are talking about in relation to teaching. Okay, so, because you can't have it. Teaching tasks must be evaluated. Teachers must evaluate themselves performing these tasks. Again, coming to the reasons why we should be managers and should be leadership. Everard's list above, so we have seen the list there, indicates a real need for leadership qualities and skills. So if the teacher is a kind of manager, so there is a need for leadership, of course, leadership skills, in order to promote effectiveness and continual improvement, and also in order to create a climate which enables people to give their best. Okay? While arranging the classroom, while giving instructions, while choosing the content of the lesson, teachers are exercising management and, of course, Leadership. Okay? Skills. Now, let's go into this form of task. From your personal teaching and learning experience so far, and everybody, depending on the stage where he or she is, what do you think are the most important features in managing people? Okay, some features which you think are important for managing people. Write a kind of list, short list. And what effective and other factors do you think to take into account when managing the classroom? For example, competitiveness, motivation, personal interest, and problems. Okay, write a kind of short list, if you don't mind. For number one, simply talking about things that, yes?
I want to compare about the process.
Features, no. Features, like for example,
What the leadership should have.
yeah, the leader, yeah. Talking about leader and features that can help him be a leader and kind of good manager, like being compassionate, empathetic. Characteristics, yes. Things that can help you about management. Sociable, kind of open. They are related to the personality of the teacher. Just a few, right? Just a few. Okay. Okay, so what do you think? First question?
I think that a good leader, a good manager, should have a strong personality, which enable him, for example, to solve problems and to make the appropriate decision in appropriate situations.
Good. Yes.
Being assertive and strict towards some certain kinds of behavior, and also monitoring students while doing their work, and of course helpful.
Yes.
Strong presence in class, good voice projection, and almost complete awareness about the students' background.
Yes, to know about the students' background and personality, yes.
There is also time, it's good for the manager.
Time management?
Yes.
Yeah.
Motivation, and a sense of leadership.
Yeah, okay, sense of leadership, so that's too broad, yes.
He is or she is a good communicator,
Yes.
quite confident, and also open to change, like flexible,
Flexibility.
respectful also. And he or she is the person who is not imposing but leading softly, directly.
Yes.
Three things which show that the teacher is very much informed or an expert in his profession, and he or she is able to anticipate problems before they happen, and also always have a plan B.
Yes, that's good, yes. Yes.
I wrote that he should be first a very good convincer, so he can convince people with good arguments. He should be a good negotiator, self-confident, and charismatic.
Charismatic.
Though it's debated.
Yes.
The eyes of the learners. The eyes of the learners. I'm not talking about.
So that's what we're trying to do.
Yes.
So these two terms here, like leadership, when we talk about leadership, we talk about charismatic. But this, what we're trying to do now is to cut them down. Okay?
Yes, sure.
What we're talking about is the ways how things can be.
Yes, I think another important characteristic of a good leader is that he needs to be approachable in order to establish a good rapport between the students, which of course will facilitate communication.
For sure.
For sure.
Yes. Yes.
I think a good leader should act upon what he or she preaches. Okay?
Act upon what he or she preaches. Yes. That is to say, do what he says. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Be a model. Be a model. Yes. Okay. So that's okay. Now the next point. What's affective? Affective, you know.
Yes.
Talking about emotions, etc. Affective factors or other factors. Do you take into account when managing the classroom? So these are some examples. You think about any other examples? Competitiveness. So one of the ways to help in the management of your, that you can take into account in managing your students and so on, is to play on this competitiveness. Especially that's why we do games, you know. Motivation, personal interest, problems, What do you think, Chris?
Equal opportunities for participation.
Equality, very important. Yes. Confidence, yes.
Taking students' affective side into consideration.
Yes, being empathetic.
Yes,
Empathetic.
especially girls.
Yes. Yes, right. To be empathetic. Yes. Empathy. It's related to the theory of human learning. One of the theories I like most is that one. Yeah.
It's trying to build and foster students' self-esteem.
Yes, to help students get self-esteem. Okay, so those are a few good points. Now let's see what we have in here. Another question for you before we go into talking about that. What do you think about these two questions? Are some people born to be leaders, or is it a question of skill and craft? Yes, Ika?
I think it is a skill that we develop in
Uh-huh,
our lives. It's not
yes.
a newborn capacity.
Yes, Naima?
In a way or another, it is a gift.
Yes, it is a gift. Yes?
Which is developed via the skills.
By skills and crafting. Yes,
It is a gift.
it is a gift, yes. Yes, Sophia?
Yeah, well, I believe that it's not innate, but I think that there are some people who have
So
this
disagreement there. So she says it is innate because it is a gift. When you say it is a gift, it is innate. You say it's not.
Yeah, but I believe that there are some people who have this tendency to be leaders.
That's it.
Yes.
What do you mean by have this tendency to be leaders? What do you mean?
Some people need more efforts to be leaders.
Yes, but others don't. Why do you think others don't?
They just need to sharpen their skills.
Why do you think they don't?
It's not really innate.
It's not really innate. Yes. Anyway, this is a question we're discussing. Okay, I'm just trying to get arguments from you. Okay, so Khadija, what do you think?
I think it's both.
It's both.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
When some people are born to be leaders,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
they strengthen this capacity by acknowledging
Skills and crafting and training. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I agree with Khadija. I think it's both. Okay? There are some people, for example, who are born to be extrovert, but others are born to be introvert. Okay? And in general, people are born with certain potentials. If a person, for example, is encouraged to maybe develop those potentials, he will be a leader. But if the context or the environment in which he is born doesn't help him to develop such skills,
Okay, it's a pity because one of the remarks I'm getting about the recordings I do is that the students there is no listening. But I said I'm using my own logistics. To enable you to be heard on the video, there should be other microphones, which we don't have. But anyway, I'm not going to stop the discussion. Yes, before I move to another question related to this, to help better understand the issue, okay? What do you think?
Maybe I agree with Khadija, but I want to make it more focused. Those who are born to be leaders are few. Are few. But generally, it's a general thing that if a person practices leadership, he might be able to become a great leader. There are even cases when certain people are generally introverts, but when they get the start practicing leadership, they exert a very great skill in leadership, and this can surprise the people who knew them before.
Yes. This is exactly why I want to ask this question. Can you think about examples of leaders? You think they are leaders? I want you to give me examples of people you know a little bit. I mean, you have read about their life and their... Yeah. Me too. I don't know. Aisha? Yes. Who is she?
She's taking care of single mothers, women.
She's the one who's responsible for kind of an association or something.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So.
I think she's a leader.
Yes. Yes.
The Prophet Muhammad.
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Yes, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Mahatma Gandhi.
Mahatma Gandhi. Yes. Now, take this example for instance. Gandhi. Okay. In terms of personality, maybe you have watched the movies, etc. What do you think? Introvert, extrovert? Huh? Yeah. He wasn't very extrovert. He was very educated and using the mind. And, yeah. But still, he is a leader. Like coming back to the example you have mentioned. Any other examples of leaders? Who is your leader, Sri Zakaria?
You mean in Morocco or
Whatever. Somebody that sticks to your mind as a model.
I think also Gandhi.
Sticks to your mind as a model? Okay? When you are teaching, you are thinking about Gandhi? That's what I mean. That's what I'm looking for. Okay? Yeah, so Gandhi. Say Gandhi, okay, so Mahatma Gandhi. So when Zakaria is teaching, is thinking about and not to eat and
In the educational field, for example, we can talk about few leaders like Mr. Hazim, like with the work they are doing.
yes.
They're trying, for example, to give insights to other.
So that's what okay, good, yeah. Yeah, any other leaders? Yes, everybody. Personally, my leader is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the best one. And then everybody like him or tries to be like him is my leader. Okay, in terms of preachers in the mosques or preachers, huh? Yeah, for example, in my life, who affected me a lot in my education process, he is a preacher in Hay Mohammadi. Okay, Casablanca. He's a very he's a university teacher as well. Okay, and I used to go to his lessons, and so far he's still my image. Whenever I'm teaching, I'm leaving. Another example that I have is Omar ibn Abdul Aziz. You know the film, the series, the Egyptian series. You know the Egyptian series, Omar ibn Abdul Aziz, not Sharif, who is making the personality, the fifth Caliphate, okay? So, via that movie, that series, I try to, embody, to have this image of that person and try to, it helps, okay? So, I don't want you to be, because I asked you a personal question, so I'm sharing with you something personal, okay? So, those are the kinds of things that, models that I keep in my mind. Especially this guy, it was very helpful for me during the studies. It needed a lot of patience. He was always my model. Okay? Whenever I feel like, I go to watch it. Really, I'm telling you some circuitry, okay? So that's what I'm... do you have any other examples, okay? Preachers, yes?
I think it's difficult.
Of course, there are others, but I'm just telling you some, okay? There are other Westerners, okay? It's not always the same, like Muslim, okay? There are other Westerns, okay? Yes?
I think it's difficult to know one person because personally speaking, I just try to take, for example, Miss Thomas. There are some criteria that I really like in personalities. In my teaching, I try to have like some of these features.
Yes.
But in other say you can find, because people at the end are human beings.
Yes.
Everyone has
something good in something, somebody good in other. Yeah, take here, take there. Yeah, that's a good perspective. Very good. So what other people, what do you take from other people?
Other people?
Yes. Who are these other people? And then do you take from other people? Yes? Okay, good. What do you take from him?
He is very patient and he is very generous.
Generous? Okay. Good.
And there are many especially teachers. There are many teachers from like high school, from primary school, and stuff. I still remember some teachers from primary school. And I still remember they're like saying the words.
Yes. Yes. So your models are usually in the cycle of teaching.
Yeah.
Yes. Any other sharing? Sharing, yes, yours? I want to know. Yes.
Like it's like the person who I look after, like to be like was my was because he's dead now. Is my grandfather. He was always a giving man, and he was very famous of his hospitality. He was in France. Everyone going from here, he used to live with him, and they used to like sleep on the floor. And the people telling me this. So I was a kind of a giving person.
Yes.
That's what I know.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Yes. Yes, Khadija, what do you think?
Okay, concerning my studies, my mediator was and still one of my cousins. He got his MA degree now, and he was always pushing me. I thought I'm going to stop in the big A, and he said there is no other solution. You have to continue.
Yes.
And he was pushing me concerning teaching. One of my teachers. I'm always imagining her, and she from her I took the idea of my MA thesis, and now I'm one of her. She is my mentor in training. I like the way she teaches.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Good. Yes. Yes. Omar Taqiyuddin. Who is your model? No, don't think so.
I don't have a specific. So usually the ones or people are successful in their life.
Yeah.
There are many people who encounter many difficulties in work, and they go abroad and they further their studies there and they come back. So such ones are inspiring.
Okay, so it give you inspiration.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Yeah. Okay, so as you can see, so different types of leaders. It's not necessarily sociable. It's not necessarily extroverts. Not necessarily educated. Prophet ﷺ. It's not necessarily many other things. Okay, so that's why many times I want to come back to the questions here. It is something gifted, okay? It is something innate. It comes with the person, okay? I think one other way how you can feel this as well, because we're going to see what research tells about this, but before we go to research, just in your family members. In your family members, I'm not talking about your small family, parents, sisters, but I'm talking about the bigger family, aunts, cousins, like what you have mentioned. So there is always in each small family, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 1, maybe none. Some good examples, good leaders. Okay, successful people, leaders. Okay, so that's one scale. Okay, how you can look at leadership, and then leadership has got degrees. Okay, leadership. So this is leadership in terms of family. You can have leadership in terms of community, district, country, worldwide. So different levels of leadership, okay? And yeah, usually it's something innate, given, okay? They have received the same kind of education, brought in the same kind of context, but this one is different from this one, okay? So that's okay. Let's see what we have from this research. So some basic features of classroom leadership emerge from findings of leadership research by Bryman 1986. Of course, there are others, but just I focus on the book I gave you. To some extent, teachers are born, not made. To some extent, it's very much this, innate, born with it, okay? However, personal qualities can be developed and strengthened. If you are not born with this quality, you can develop it, okay? You can develop. They can be developed. Qualities can be developed, okay? When we talk about, for example, being introvert, we have said that introvert not necessarily against leadership, But then you can still develop it. You can still moderate it, okay? Make it, towards going between the two extremes, extrovert and introvert, okay? So qualities and features of leadership can be, okay, developed and strengthened. Some examples, okay? Personal qualities, so personal self-awareness, professional integrity, person-oriented welfare, your welfare, organized planning, talking about planning since we're talking about teachers, openness and naturalness with a sense of humor. Many of you haven't mentioned the sense of humor, which is also very helpful in this leadership sometimes, but not all the times. It helps, okay? Yeah, it helps, but it helps. Sense of humor helps a lot. I think you can witness this from your everyday life. So the people who are usually having a sense of humor, you tend to approach them easily, rather than others who don't. Personal presence and authority. So Yunus, you have mentioned presence and authority. So this is in relation to the question I gave you in terms of what are the kinds of qualities of leadership. So these are just examples, but of course the list can go further, right? Styles of leadership now. Leadership, it has got different styles, okay? There is this, but especially in relation to the language teaching and education. I give you some time to have a look at this and then we discuss it. You will have the, just have a look at, you will have the video, okay. And you also have it in the book, okay, it's in there. One which I really, by myself, didn't get well, it is this one, number 2. I have my own estimation, but what do you think? Paternalistic. Teacher sells decisions to class. Yeah. Yes?
They might not want to buy decisions.
Yes, for sure. That's all the time. So you have to sell them. But then...
you have to convince them first.
Yes, maybe. You have to convince them. Yes, Nadia?
You have a decision-making class, so you must make students you must convince them. So it's like selling things.
Yes.
Not imposing.
And that's why I see the word paternalistic, it's maybe coming from parental behavior. Because usually that's what parents do with their kids to make them adopt your decisions. You know, tend to give them candies and take them out. You know, there are ways you can, okay, deal with them in order to convince them. Okay, so this is maybe I think it's also applicable to class. So selling, the way you have to sell your decisions, not all the time convincing doesn't work. So you have to know how to sell. Okay.
Not impose.
Yes, not impose. Also, this is something also related to marketing. If you remember marketing, you have to know your ways, to find your ways to sell yourself first. You know, that's when you are looking for a job. Well, one of the things that people get in their training is this advice. You have to find your ways to sell yourself. So the same thing for the teacher and his decisions or her decisions. So you have to know how to sell yourself to your audience and to your students. So maybe that's the meaning we have. So the first one, autocratic. Yes, it is autocratic. So teacher-centered, teacher imposes decisions on class. Okay. Now, if you go and study, maybe you have studied business management. You have now. There are two main approaches of management. There is the autocratic approach, and there is the democratic approach. So the same thing applicable to teaching. So autocratic, it means top-down. Decisions are taken in the top, and then they are imposed on the employees to execute them. So this is the same issue applicable for teaching. Teacher is autocratic, teacher-centered, teacher-imposed decisions on class. Opposition to it, we have the democratic approach where the administration in terms of business participates, makes the employees participate in the decision-making process. Okay? I know some business, so. Yes? Yes?
From the definition I found in the dictionary, I think the paternalistic is also it's more aligned also to the autocratic. It's not about being democratic. It's more protective. Okay, in the dictionary,
yes.
It's showing that we are more protective, but at the same time we don't give the decision or the other to make choices of decisions.
So that's exactly what we have. That's exactly what we have said. You take decisions, so you don't try to convince them. But you just sell it to them, to make them adopt your decision without convincing them using this kind of parents' procedures.
That's why I think the way they are presented there, they go from the more autocratic to the one which is more open and
yes, contingency, yeah, exactly. So consult, I was talking about democratic. So democratic is class functions within limits defined by teacher, enabling the students to participate in taking decisions. There is some freedom given for the students, some amount of freedom given for the students to take initiatives and to take risks and to take decisions. Then number 3, consultative decisions subject to questioning and change. Okay, consultative. Okay, so there is some kind of consultation. What do you think? It's related to democratic, in fact. So you consult the students, okay? For example, many times, if you notice on Facebook, Richard always asks you, do you think you can come for this? He tries to ask you this, okay? But for me, I don't. It's not asking. Anyway, so it's a kind of consultation. Consultation, that's what I mean, okay? Consulting you. Are you free? Do you think you can make it? Okay? So that's what we mean by consultative. Participative. Teacher presents problem, gets suggestions, and decides. Okay. Democratic, I mentioned that. Person-oriented, learner-centered. Teacher takes account of individual learners. We have here more human learning and teaching, of course, empathetic, and so on. Task-oriented, syllabus must be completed. We're going to discuss this later. There are 2 ways how you can deal with teaching. Are you more interested in the task? Or are you more interested in the learner? Are you more interested in the syllabus, or are you more interested in the learner understanding? And okay, so this is task-oriented. Syllabus must be completed. So focus on the task and the syllabus, especially when we are going to talk about context. Last slides, okay, when we talk about context, how context and the nation and the ministry imposes on the teachers to finish the syllabus and so on. So, contingency is teacher adapts to the changing needs of individual learners. This is the most flexible version of approach for management. Very flexible. Teacher adapts to the changing needs of the individual learners, the class, and to the demands of the syllabus. So it's very flexible on all sides, in terms of syllabus, in terms of learners, and in terms of conditions and context and logistics, etc. Okay, so these are some basic styles of leadership in the language teaching context. Okay. So evaluation can be used to monitor the strengths and weaknesses in teachers' leadership skills. One of the ways how you can sharpen your leadership skills. Okay, evaluate your leadership skills. You should be engaged in evaluating, okay, yourself, your teaching style, and so on. and to provide an indication of whether these skills are working appropriately. Okay, let's move on. Now, in relation to the focus on the task or focus on the learner, should we concentrate on getting the work done and thus pursue the syllabus, focus on the task? Or should we gear classes to the learner's level and pace, each learner's own syllabus? Okay. In this regard, we need to take into account the following: external pressures of context in the form of, okay, so when you are engaged in evaluating all this, so you need to take into account these external factors like national syllabus, formal examinations, parents' expectations. So all this impose on the teacher, okay, what to do, okay? Especially in relation to the first two questions here. Focus on the task or focus on the syllabus, learner's own syllabus. Many times we can't do this because we have these obligations. National syllabus we have to finish, okay? So therefore you have to go on. How would you describe yourself? Okay, we have mentioned about personal things enough. Now the last quality, which is referred to as contingency leadership, tends to be the most suitable kind of approach of leadership, especially when we take into account the fact that the teacher is not alone, the school or the students are not alone. There are other external factors that we need to take into account, okay, in the teaching process. Now, on the basis of this contingency leadership approach to leadership, the main ways how teachers can adopt them are summarized in the following. So in the classroom, teachers prioritize between the task, group, and individual according to the demands of the situation. Okay? This shows how flexible you should be. This flexibility means, of course, that at any moment they can be task-oriented, group-oriented, or individual-oriented. Okay? In order to be flexible and to be able to satisfy, to get best results, you need to be flexible. How are you going to be flexible? By adopting this contingency approach. And there are 4 ways how you can adopt this contingency approach. This is the first way, based on Cole 1983. I repeat it again. In the classroom, teachers prioritize between task, group, and individual according to the demands of the situation. So in each situation, you can prioritize something. You can prioritize the task. Another time you can prioritize the group work. Another time you prioritize the individual work, and so on and so forth. Okay? Another time you prioritize the national syllabus, and it goes on like this. Second way how you can adopt this balanced approach to leadership in language teaching: task functions directed towards task needs contain activities like setting objectives, allocating responsibilities, and deciding appropriate standards. This is related mainly to the lesson plan. When you are making your lesson plan, this contingency approach should be there. Group maintenance functions deal with team building and motivation communication, so in order to establish a rapport with your students. Individual maintenance is geared towards coaching, counseling, and self-development. Okay, so these are ways you can develop them in your reading. Okay, so I also mentioned at the beginning that management clearly manifests itself when you are already preparing your lesson plan. So here it is, management in language teaching. So we are talking about aims, materials, and of course accountability. So according to Everard, listed above, so teachers as managers should be clear about the aims. So this is something we have already seen, so I'm not coming back to it. In lesson planning, they set the aims of the lesson in the light of the sequence of lessons, the level of the learners, and the demands of the syllabus. They need to plan materials to use and timing for each part of the lesson. They need to anticipate the kinds of interaction that may occur during the lesson and also problems or whatever. Now, while you are doing this, so there should be evaluation, okay? During the lesson, teachers monitor the effectiveness of the materials and always seek answers for the following questions. Are the instructions clear? Timing. Should I spend more time on grammar point? Motivation of the learners. Are the learners interested? Teacher's own performance. Were my aims achieved? Were my aims achieved? Did all the parts of the lesson fit together logically? So you see how evaluation is going on in the teaching process. And all this has to do with the teacher as a manager and the teacher as a leader, all those kinds of features of leadership. You have more questions that the teacher can ask himself or herself for conducting evaluation. Where new aids can be found? How often have I used pictures in my lesson? Have I used them effectively? Are they up to date? So you should be engaged in evaluation. This is summary. Now the last thing I want to talk about, and to finish the lecture today, is the context. In the sense that if you want to do evaluation, so you need to take into account context. So, and context, and there are two directions in there. Either the context determines the evaluation or affects the evaluation, or the evaluation affects the context. But first of all, let's have a definition of the context. What do we mean by context? We are talking about context of the school, context of the teacher, context of the students. Okay? The students, as we are sitting here, we are not alone in this place. Okay? There are other things that affect us. Okay? So this is a kind of schema that summarizes all the variables involved in the context. Okay? So you see the teacher, learners in the middle, the classroom, and all what surrounds them are the variables that determine them, affect them in one way or another. So you have advisors, inspectors, regional resources, Ministry of Education. Okay? You have levels there. You have different levels, if you notice with me. There is the classroom, then go into the level of the school, go into the level of the region, and go into the level of the society. Higher we go. So, in terms of school, so we have head teacher, heads of departments, school parents. In terms of region, you have Ministry of Education, delegation in our context, and the academy in our context, because we have here some terminology relevant to abroad. And then society in general, we have the economics. It's a very sensitive issue, education. Economics, politics, social attitudes and expectations, religious and cultural influences. Oh, yes, please.
Maybe there is another broader circle,
yes,
which is the one of the international community.
Yes.
Yes.
This should be added.
Yeah.
Yes, especially nowadays, where we are getting more and more global, and we are having international agencies and organizations intervening in the education process of countries, and nations. So that's a very good circle that we should be added in there. Okay, this is the yes, global and global international perspective. I'm not going to go into this task, but you can do it on your own at home, for more understanding of these issues. So this is a kind of explanation of this schema I have just presented. The classroom where the teacher works is a context largely influenced by the individuals in it, that is to say the teachers, the students. A school has its own organization culture. You can move on from one, maybe now you can feel this. If you move from one school to another, you can feel that some kind of the specific culture relevant to each kind of school. Some schools are more organized, others are, this is one way of. The school is situated within a regional setting. When talking about the school and how it is affected by the region, school is situated within a regional setting, which is in turn part of a larger social and political environment with its own outlook on education. Okay? Education in the United States is different from education in Morocco, is different from education in Saudi Arabia. Okay? So it's determined by the politics and the economics and the culture of the country.
Also within the same country, for example.
Yeah, for sure.
Schools in Rabat, for example, are different to the schools in Senegal, in terms of culture, in terms of financial resources.
Yes.
And also within the same city again, so we can talk about urban and rural
yes.
areas that affect the way schools are organized.
Yes, yes. Talking about university as well, it's the same thing. So, for example, if you go to Casablanca, there are two faculties of letters in Casablanca, Bimsik and Shok. Then there is Muhammadiyah. Then there is Jadida. Then there is Qanitra. Then there is Rabat.
And in Rabat there are two.
And Rabat there are two? Only one. There are two?
We see that one.
They are different now. Okay. But at the time, I know they are one. And just Mulhaqa, annex. They are different. Okay, yes. So then two. That's but now, can you go to the south? Okay, the poor south. Only one for that's politics and
Is it the reason of the strike yesterday?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Views on education range from seeing it as a training manpower, as a transmission. So, education can be viewed differently from one context to another. In terms of training manpower, in terms of transmission of culture, there are some places where the transmission of culture is more important than training of manpower, like in Saudi Arabia, etc. As a form of social control, education can be as a form of social control. Individual development, all these influence both directly and indirectly how language is taught, learned, and evaluated in the classroom. The role of evaluation. So evaluation eliminates the effects that society has on the personal behavior of the teacher. So one way how you can understand all these issues is via evaluation. This is one way how you can understand these issues. If a society tends to be authoritarian, it is likely to be reflected in the classroom environment. It affects the roles of teachers and learners. Autocratic, teacher-centered, same issues. Now, there are two directions, as I told you. The context affects evaluation. The context can affect evaluation. How? In decentralized educational systems, which we don't have in Morocco. Decentralized education system, the onus is on the individual school or even the individual teacher to make curriculum adjustments. Okay? Which is not applicable to Morocco because the teacher has national syllabus to follow. But in some countries, you can have the teacher can adjust the curriculum. Okay? So, and that can do evaluation to do that. Okay? In contexts where there is considerable government or ministry control on the educational system, a move by an individual teacher to introduce innovation might be considered revolutionary in authoritarian places where there is a control. So if a teacher wants to do some kind of evaluation in order to do a new innovation and so on, and just in the curriculum, it is going to be considered as revolutionary, if not something else. Okay? Evaluation affects the context. Now the same thing again. So the context can affect evaluation. Evaluation can affect the context. Because talking about this issue of how context or school is a reflection of the style and the politics of the government, autocratic and so on. So they can use evaluation for the same purpose. Okay. Often more authoritarian systems see evaluation as a means of control. They don't do it like for innovation and so on, but can be done as a form of control. If an evaluation is undertaken so as to make people more accountable for their work, there is this innovation, big change in terms of pedagogy and so on. But the underlying, the hidden main goal is to maintain power. Okay, it is there. Evaluation can be informal, done by teachers. It can be done by, of course, we have discussed these things. And that's the end. Okay. Well, you have to. Thank you very much. Especially after the work I have done, I need a lot of applause. Please